souls, and welcome back to another episode of Passion and Purpose. I'm your co-host, Ren Gaia, alongside Dia and Mr. Al. Today, we're holding space for something sacred. As we move closer to Mother's Day, we felt called to honor the power, the presence, and the quiet strengths of mothers. Because motherhood is not just what we see on the surface. It's not just titles or the roles, it's the unseen sacrifices, the silent prayers, the way love continues to pour, even when a mother feels empty. And for many of us, motherhood holds layers like joy and grief, strength and vulnerability, resilience and remembrance. But today, we choose to anchor into love as legacy. We choose to honor the way mothers continue to rise, to continue to nurture, to create, even through life's most challenging moments. And this here on this platform, this is a space of grace. This is a space of reflection. This is a space where we celebrate the sacred energy of motherhood in all of its forms. So whether you are a mother, you have a mother, are healing your relationship with your mother, or have been mothered by life itself, this conversation is for you. So, as we get into it, I welcome co-hosts Mr. Al and Dia.
Thank you for that introduction, Ren.
Absolutely. Hey, Dia. Hey, Mr. Al.
Hey, Ren. Hey, Mr. Al. I'm excited to honor the mothers today, so we can jump right into the questions.
Yes, let's do it.
What does the strength of a mother truly look like beyond survival?
All right, I can jump out there and take this one first if you want me to. So, to me, the strength of a mother, beyond survival, it's beyond just making it through the day to day. It's the way we continue to love, even when we feel just like empty, like there's like no place to love from. It's the ability to still show up and to still nurture and to still create safety for others while still managing to show up for ourselves. Like true strength is not just survival. It's softness that refuses to harden. It's choosing love again and again and again, even after loss, even after disappointment, even after pain. Like in my eyes, that's true strength and power.
Of course, I'm not a mother, so I don't speak from a related place, but I speak from a place of observation. And I would say for my mother, beyond survival, that she was maybe a quiet teacher. I would watch her put up 45 records together. And what she was doing was grieving. I had no idea, and that's why I have a love for Motown music. But my father was killed at the age of 3, and she would continue to grieve during his birthday and things like that. I like what Rand said about no place to love from, and she definitely possessed that in the hardships, but she didn't give up on us. She got help. She got supporters outside of that realm to know that, hey, I got to feed my boys, me and my brother that's 2 years older. And she continued, she continued her quest in suffering. And it didn't always look pretty to be, but it was definitely something that she continued on her journey. And I always take my head off to her for that. But she did, and she used to say from times, I did the best that I know how to do. And I believe that's what makes me a wellness coach today, is because, my God, if my mother, if she did this well with us, if she has some additional wellness tools, I'm sure we both could have benefited from it. Not just her, us as her boys, but her as our guide and kind of forced parent at that time, because I'm sure she didn't plan to do these things as a single mother, but we see it all the time. So I definitely would say for her, beyond survival, was definitely her resilience to continue.
Absolutely. And I can definitely, concur with what you spoke about your mother saying, doing the best that you could, because this motherhood thing, and I tell plenty of people, this does not come with the blueprint.
When I think about this question, what the strength of a mother truly looks like beyond survival, I can't help but to think about the ancestors that came before us, that came before my mother, before my grandmother, before my great grandmother, before I think all the way back. And I think about how during the time of like chattel slavery, and those mothers had to endure seeing their child literally be stripped from them, taken from them, having no having no say, and yet somehow they still had to be able to have the strength to still get up and pick that cotton and cook those meals and raise other people's children without saying a word, without harboring anger, or at least letting it show. And so when I think about what that strength looks like beyond survival, it makes me think of how they were able to still show another child love, because as they were mothering other people's children while theirs was taken away, they still somehow showed some love to these children that weren't their own. And then it makes me think about up to my great grandmother, and how my great grandmother, she went through her set of challenges, but she was able to teach my grandmother how to be a strong black female in this society. And then my grandmother, she was able to then, help my mother and my aunts to be strong, and other women. And so that strength beyond survival, to me, it really is about being able to not let the circumstance that life has thrown at you keep you from being able to put out the thing that is going to help make somebody else better, even if it's not your own child. And that's kind of some of the things. And I know that, Ren, our mothers and so many other mothers out there have experienced losing their children in various ways, whether it be through gun violence, whether it be through, illnesses, what have you. And yet these mothers, they go out and they are some of the biggest givers in the community. And they still, if they have other children, they still find a way to be able to extend that love to others. And even in the cases where some mothers are not able to they can't muster that up, at the end of the day, they're able to find a way to put one foot in front of the other. And those are just some of the things, now being a mom, that I think about when I think about, the strength of a mother beyond survival.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
In what ways do mothers quietly shape legacy through everyday love and presence?
Let me tackle this. First of all, I want to give praise to the grandmothers. The
Mm-hmm.
grandmothers that are the matriarchs of many families. They keep a quiet order to everything. The Thanksgivings, the gatherings, the respect, the mannerism. It seemed like it's birthed out of these grandmothers. Some of them still have the blankets with the many different designs and all that. It's culture everywhere. It's love everywhere. You can smell the serenading of biscuits or this on the stove when you go there. And so my mother needed additional help because I was a byproduct of the fatherless generation. And those grandmothers, they stayed 2 blocks over from each other in the projects. And I never knew that they was really even in poverty because the love overshadowed the economics circumstances that was taking place. And we had the government cheese and all that, but we loved it, right? But the thing is about my my grandmothers, they never gave me one single birthday card, but they asked because it was so many of us. So it was 1,000 little cousins and all that. But I just had to tell them, "Hey, Granny, it's my birthday," and they both would say, "What is it what you want me to make you, baby?" And it's always some food, and that was my biggest thing at the time was getting something to eat. And my grandmother would make me these dripping cakes with butter and all of this in there, and just to show their appreciation. They were so clever intellectually because there's so many of us, but they made you feel like that you were special, and you argue with your other cousins like, "Now, Granny loved me more than she loved you," because she showed me this, and they just had a way of making each one of you feel like you were special in there. All the remedies that my grandmother, she had 16 kids, and my other grandmother had 10 kids. And of course, they didn't have insurance and all that. So they would use these remedies, Father John, olive oil, and all these things that we had to take to keep those coughs down and all that, for they won't grow because we can't afford you to get sick. We got to keep moving and keep pushing. And they both had giant gardens where they grew tomatoes and they grew all the herbs. And the milkman came and the egg man came and this person came, and they did the best they can to raise these generations and to leave a legacy behind of wisdom. I see why biblically the Bible speaks of wisdom as a female, because these grandmothers that I'm talking about, they could tell you something that it'll take you 20 years to figure out like what they're talking about, right? And now I get it. I get some of the things. I tell you one quote, and my mother's mother used to say, it was simple. It was saying, she said, "Keep living."
Mm.
And I
Mm.
was like, "Keep living." What's that mean? I thought she was saying all this time, incomplete sentence, right? She used to say, "Keep living." And that's some of the things that I wanted. And I wanted some other people's lives, no matter what the consequences was or this or that. But the longer that I kept living, I understood why it was best for me to take a different route or find a healthier alternative. I understood clearly what she said, and still understand what she meant by today. So those grandmothers for me, that's the legacy that they continue. And I hope I'm making them proud by carrying these things on. So head off to all you grandmothers that have stepped up, helped raise those kids, even your grandkids, and they call you mother as well. So I just want to send a shout out to you, and I thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, even hearing you say that last part, shout out to the ones that are called mother, because even my grandma, we call her Big Mama, because I have a cousin that, grew up living with her, but she didn't want him to take away from calling his own mother, mama. So he said, "No, that's mama, and I'm Big Mama." And to this day, that has stood. And I mean, like you said, she even shares with me now things that were passed down from her grandmother. I told her, I said, "Big Mama, I want to get back to the old days where, this neighbor over here is growing watermelons and cucumbers, and this one has okra and squash, and we bartering, and the days that we're not having to go into the grocery store to get these medicines or anything." She said, "Well, I'm gonna tell you something. Like one remedy," she said, "my grandma would say, if a person had hemorrhoids, you go out there and grab you a handful of pine needles and put them in a bucket and set it on fire and let a person sit over that bucket." And like you said, because back during those days, they may not have had a lot of money to go to the store, to be buying different things. Let alone the stores didn't even have, the creams and medicines that we have access to. So I can agree, like in ways that mothers and grandmothers quietly shape legacy through everyday love and presence was just by showing up and being present. And just like, your grandmother, now, honestly, I can't tell you how many grandkids my one grandmother has because he gonna get me for saying this. It's okay. I think my uncle has like 14 kids by himself. But the way that my grandmother would show up and show love and presence, it wasn't like you said by showing up with a birthday gift for each of us. This lady had a calendar and she would write all of our birthdays down on this calendar so you could count on every year for your birthday. She was going to be the first one to call you. And she would always say, hey, she called me Boots. Hey, Boots, it's Grandma. I'm like, well, Grandma, I know it's you. Nobody else number pop up like this. This is nobody else number. But, that was a way that she showed up. So one way is sometimes it looks like consistency, like being there. It's the small things, that we don't really take the time to recognize in the moment. But that's one way. Another way is speaking life into your child and your grandchildren, and also being that listening ear. I mean, even to this day, I go to my grandmother's house, my big mama. I go to her house several times throughout the week. You know why? Because that's my live diary. She knows stuff that my mom and my daddy and other people don't know, but that's my live diary. And that's, building that quietly shaping legacy, because in turn, that's teaching me how to show up for my daughter. That's teaching me how to be present and to create a comfortable living space to know, okay, I can go and talk to my mommy about anything. So again, it's that speaking life and just being an ear. And then those types of things, they become identity. They become confidence. That becomes like how the child moves through the world, because it all starts at home.
That's right. I love how you just said it literally shapes how a person moves through this world. And so much of what both of y'all has said has resonated with me. And just an example of how great grandmother makes that legacy that shapes how you show up in the world. I remember my great grandmother, my gram. And she used to say so many things, y'all. She used to tell us to make sure we take care of our feet. So to this very day, if my shoes are hurting my feet, I don't wear them. I don't even wear heels now because I'm at a place where heels hurt my feet. So I will not wear heels because my grandmother taught me, you take care of your feet because these feet got to get you around this entire life of yours. So I take that very seriously. And I remember, when she was passing on, my grandma was so ready to go, y'all. And she used to tell us, she'd say, well, I'm getting ready to go. And my aunt would say, well, Graham, you want us to pack your bags? And she'll say, honey, where I'm going, I don't need my bags. And, just to see how ready she was, she feel like she had lived her life. And it makes you realize that this thing called life is not forever. And you do reach a point to where you feel like you done seen enough and you don't have to be afraid to say goodbye when it's time to say goodbye. But one thing that also really shaped me from my great grandmother, I remember one time she gave me a compliment. She was complimenting my hair. And I said, Graham, I said, my hair look a mess. She said, don't you do that. She said, if anybody gives you a compliment, you just say thank you. She said, now, I'm going to give you some money and you can go get your hair done. But you remember, you say thank you. And to this day, when someone, because I was a person as I grew up, I did struggle with confidence a lot and I struggled with compliments. But ever since my grandmother told me that when I was a little girl, when people give me a compliment to this day, I hear her in the back of my ear and I just say thank you. And that's just a way that I know she directly impacted me and how I show up in this world and how I teach my daughter. You say thank you. You accept a compliment and you give compliment. And another thing I think about in showing up every day, leaving that legacy, showing up every day. I also think about my grandmother, both of my grandmothers. Y'all, I think we could be here all day just talking about our grandmothers. But I know my grandmother on my mother's side, She was the first, I want to say she was the first African American female to work at the health department. And my grandmother, she was a go-getter. She was one of those women that in her time, she was not going to let grass grow under her feet. She wanted to make sure that when there was a job that needed to be done, she had 6 children. But when a job needed to be done, she made sure she got it done. And she set up a legacy of women after her, my aunts, myself, my mom, that we are all go getters. She said, my mom is now, in serving as in on the school board and all those types of things, because these are things my grandmother instilled. You be active in your community, you be a part of the change in the community that you want to see. And now, that legacy has followed on through the time. But I've also think about my grandmother on my dad's side, and I was listening to my aunt talk one day, and she was saying how my grandmother, when she used to feed them, she had 4 children. And she said that she realized, when my grandmother would go and she would fix food, and they were, they struggled and everything. She came to understand when she got older that when my grandmother was fixing dinner for them and she would say, "No, y'all go ahead and eat," she was letting them eat, and that she didn't have food after that. She would find some other way to get what she needed, but she would let them eat and not have food for herself. And so it just it that instills like a sense of sacrifice that mothers are willing to take to make sure their children are okay. And I think about my own mother. And Mr. Al, you mentioned something about how because the love overshadowed, the reality of how poor, the circumstances were, but because the love overshadowed, you didn't know. And I remember that growing up, because we certainly did not have growing up as much as we would have as much as I know my mom would have wanted us to. She took care of us and made sure we had a home and food in our belly, but we certainly didn't have, an abundance. But I never knew what we didn't have, because my mom, I tell you, my mom would encourage me and my brother. That woman would make sure, if my brother, he was in all kinds of sports and all that stuff, and I know it's not as expensive then as it is now, but it still was expensive. And my mom would make a way, and she would always encourage me and my brother, listen, whatever you want to do, you can do it. And I never grew up with this sense of feeling of, because I was a black female or because I didn't have this money or whatever, that I can't do such and such. I just, if I had it in my mind, I felt like I could do it because my mom told me I could. And she says now, her main thing was to know that, and my grandmother and now her, is that she has instilled in her children so that we can be better off than she was, and that we can pass on a legacy that we instill into our children so they can be better off than we were. And that is absolutely what's happening. And so those are just some of the things that I think about when I think about that quiet shaping a legacy just through showing up. I mean, you don't have to do a whole lot. They don't have millions of dollars, but just speaking into us every single day and singing little songs. You, like my grandmother, she say, "You are so beautiful, beautiful," strengthening us and our confidence. And even, sometimes you struggle, but you hear that stuff. And it later down in life, you reminded on the inside. And when you see yourself, like myself at 42 years old, and I tell people, my 12-year-old self and even 22-year-old self, if someone would have told me then the confidence I would have at 42, I would have thought they were talking about a whole nother person. But I can see the confidence I have in who I am because of what my grandmothers and my mother passed down through to me. How can mothers reclaim space for themselves while still nurturing others? Now, I will say this. I know for me now, being a mother, I don't think I ever understood the value of having personal time, alone time. And when you think about like the mothers and the things that they had to endure as we were younger and had, all the things, you start to understand. You start to, why did mama need to go in the bathroom or whatever the case may be? But now I understand. Like, I never knew that I would appreciate being able to go to the bathroom and just have it to myself. Never could have imagined. But for me now, what I have come to understand is I have to reclaim space for myself if I want to show up and be a wonderful mother. It's not if, like, I have to find time, and it's hard sometimes, but I realize it's necessary. And so even if it just means literally stealing away, letting everybody else go to bed so I can steal away to take my shower on my own, put on my candle, put on some little music, just that little small moment, it makes the world of a difference. I could have never imagined how just that small moment of quiet and stillness while everybody else is sleeping, knowing I'm tired, knowing I got to get up early because I'm probably the one that's going to get up before everybody else for sometimes. And but that moment, it changes so much. So I think it is vitally important. And I know for some mothers, they say, I really don't have it. Even if it's still in a way between going from one job to another and you got to sit in your car and eat the candy bar that you love, like reclaiming that space for yourself is vital.
I definitely have to agree with you on that one, dear, because when a mother takes time to rest or to just breathe, that's reconnecting with yourself. So she's not taken away from her child or her children. That's actually pointing to the version of herself that's able to show up for her child and her children. I know, sometimes I will come home and let my daughter come in the house first. And it's like I just have to sit in the garage for a second and just decompress from the day. And it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. She's safe. She's in the house. But I'm here in the garage attached to the house with her. But it's like she has everything, all the necessities that she needs. Now let me just take a second and pour into myself and give myself something that I need. So reclaiming space, it starts with releasing the belief that you have to pour from an empty cup to be a good mother, because you don't. To me, in order to be good for anybody else, you have to be good for yourself. We have mothers that I hope this reaches someone in the audience that's watching that feels like you just have to give and give and give and pour and pour and pour until you have nothing left to pour. That's not even healthy. And I tell parents around me and grandparents that all the time. So it's about balance. It's about boundaries. And it's about giving yourself permission to exist outside of just being mom or just being grandma or just being bonus mom. Because in actuality, we all are whole beings, not just a role.
I want to say, outside of your title, definitely outside of mother's title, they are a whole person, a person that hurts, a person that gives, a person that recognizes the things that we need. I think I'd be lost without my wife knowing where I put something. It's almost like she got a extra brain, one for me and one for herself. And in that the space, I want to kind of like ask my my co-host here, like if me being your son, if I was to ask you guys, Dia and Ren, what is it? What is it that you want? Like if a son or a daughter was to ask their mother, like, what space would you need? Or what is it that I can do to help you, like, enjoy just your own space? What would you guys like give? And what would you say to our audience if someone did, they was in position and they recognized, like, it seemed like mama need a break? What would you say to that individual if they was to ask you, mother, what can I do on my end?
Mm. Mr. Al, I have great appreciation for you even asking that, because honestly, I will say nothing is too small. It's the simple things that I now have a teenager, and sometimes I just be like, whew, if she would just wash the dishes, that would help me out a great deal. If she would just take the towels out of the dryer and fold them rather than just coming and dumping them on my bed. And, I haven't mothered a son, but even with a son, I'd imagine like the small things like, you know what, son, rolling that trash can to the curb and bringing it back. I appreciate it. So I'll say, nothing is too small. Just, that cup of tea. And in honor of this episode, I have my mother hustler teacup. Because mothers are true hustlers in all that we're juggling. So again, I would say whatever you think would be something helpful to do, I say act on it, because nothing is too small. Like, we appreciate, just like Dia was speaking about that moment to just breathe to herself. Maybe if her husband said, all right, I'm going to tuck Angel in tonight. I done already started the shower for you, and I lit your favorite candle, and I got that cup of tea, that lavender calming tea waiting for you. That would take like the weight of the world off of her shoulders, I bet.
Ren, you hit the nail on, and like you said, Mr. Al, beautiful that you even consider the question. And like, I have to echo exactly what Ren said. Nothing is too small. I think about this episode of Bluey. I'm sure many parents out there can relate to Bluey sometimes. And I remember this one episode where the mom in Bluey, she just had to go to the bathroom. She needed a minute. And the dad kept trying to keep the kids away, just tried to keep and they just like, no, we're gonna get the mom. And the whole episode they was trying to get the mom. And finally, when Bluey got to mom, she said, what did we do? And she said, nothing. And they're like, well, why are you in the bathroom? Why are you away from us? And she said, I just need a minute. And sometimes we just need a minute. We don't need you to ask for anything. Sometimes that's just helpful. Just don't ask me for nothing in this minute. Just let me just be here. Because one thing I understand with the 6-year-old now is there's no, they don't understand boundaries yet fully. So when mom literally has a headache and you are feeling unwell, but they need you to get up and get that apple, they need that apple. Can I still get the apple? Give me 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes up now. Can I still get? And you're just like, so just sometimes, like Ren said, nothing literally is too small. Just knowing that you have mom in mind and you actually act on that thing that you were thinking could be helpful makes the world of a difference.
You know what now? I'm gonna have to tell them folks, I'm gonna have to send them a message on Bluey. Because my daughter is beyond the age of watching Bluey, but I have a 3-year-old little nephew. And to keep him quiet, sometimes when he's here, we have to watch Bluey. And I can say on this last Bluey episode that I watched, it was so funny. The mom went to go use the restroom and the toilet wasn't flushed. Then the other little kid was asking, Mommy, where's my whatever the little toy is she was looking for? And she was just kind of like, oh my goodness. So she went, and where the dad was, he was like, hey, I'm hungry. And so she just kind of stopped and said, okay, listen, if you go clean up your room, I bet you'll find your toy. You go flush the toilet, and how about you cook dinner for us and figure it out? So again, that goes back to Mr. Al. Nothing is too small.
Nothing is too small.
They're doing something right on Bluey.
They are. I like Bluey. What does it mean to mother from a place of healing instead of hurt?
Ooh. So this experienced I can definitely say I've experienced some hurt over the course of this lifetime. So first, by becoming aware of what you carry and choosing not to pass that hurt down to your child. Like, because my daughter's father transitioned when she was a year old, due to gun violence. For so long, I felt like I had to try to show up and almost like overextend and overdo. But it was because I was coming from a place of hurt, like, oh man, her dad is not physically present. And I'm trying to think, okay, what would he give her for her birthday? What would he give her for Christmas? But it was like, that's not helping her. That's hindering her. And that's passing along because I'm moving out of a wounded space as opposed to a healed space. And I say this like, it doesn't mean you're perfect, or it doesn't mean that you don't have moments. you pause, you reflect, and you grow, and you say, okay, let me stop my own self in my tracks right here. So you choose to respond instead of react to things. You choose to love your child in maybe ways that you needed to be loved. So in doing so, you end up breaking cycles. So, and I say this, healing mothers raise aware children. And that right there, that helps to shift generations.
And I just wanted to say that, oh my God, talking about generations, and that's what this is all about, right? Is honoring mothers and what it is we pour into children to heal generations. And I understand that, everybody doesn't have the same relationship with their mother or have had the same experience being mothered. And so some of this might not translate over into their experience, but at the end of the day, we can all point to someone who has touched us in a way that is in a mothering type of capacity, and that can be honored also. And one of the things that I think about from my own mother in terms of mothering from a place of healing versus hurt, my parents, they split up when me and my brother were in middle school and were divorced later on. And my parents didn't have the perfect situation, and as a kid, you see certain things and you might not always understand it then, but whenever you think back as an adult, you go, oh, it wasn't quite the healthiest situation, Um, but one of the things my mom was so very intentional about is that no matter what the situation was between her and my father, I never once heard my mother speak negatively about my father. And that's something that even as being a married woman now, I think about in terms of in the respect of my husband, because I know sometimes we don't always get along and what have you like that, but I know that when it comes to my daughter and her hearing me how I talk about her father, or if he's disciplining her, that we don't show that we are at odds with each other, so that she sees that unity. That is something that I was able to kind of take from the experience of my mom, because even though things might not have been great between her and my dad, she never let us hear her speak negatively about him, so that we continue to respect him as the father that he was to us.
Mhm. That's important.
I want to say, in my adverse childhood, I wasn't. I'm sure I gave my mother some challenges, and in it, I had to tell her later on when I understood it, is that I wasn't intentionally rebellious. I was a little bit confused from the bass coming from her voice and not my father. I know women may say this at times, and they deserve the compliment of so, but I hope that I can clear some things up. When you tell, especially a young man that's struggling, I'm I'm your mother and your father.
Hmm.
The thing is, I don't need my father like coming through you. I need that nurture that I'm used to, and that come only from a mother. I don't need you playing another role for me, because that's something that I don't think that you'll do well. So the nurture is enough in itself. The nurture offers a healing, right? And I believe a lot of times, I know it's unfortunate, mothers do raise their children without fathers, but I think that God has gave us enough individually, that we have our own unique ability as each gender. So the nurture is enough alone. So I don't think we need to take on the extra discipline, because, and I get it, we're trying to compensate for what's missing, but I don't think those things actually compensate for what missing. but I think it makes it more complicated from what is missing. And so, for those mothers that, like I say, I hope I haven't crossed the line by speaking of for those single mothers. But if you offer nurture and nurture come through you, I believe that that's enough. We don't need to try to be their father as well. Vice versa, a man shouldn't try to be a woman's role, or try to be your. I'm trying to be your mother as well. No, it's too much. Yeah, it's too much experience on either end. Like share what you know, and I believe that that child will accept that for who you are.
Oh,
That's good stuff,
absolutely.
Mr. Al.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I just want to shout out both points from both, both of my co-hosts here. I mean, Dia made a very valid point, not to speak ill of the other parent. That I can't even explain how important that is. Because then, like you said, that can cause a child to, in turn, turn away from their other parent. And then what Mr. Al just said, and I'm going to speak as a single mother and say, no, you didn't cross the line. And I thank you for making that point because you're right. Like we already have enough responsibility, as mother, being nurturer, nourisher, and just all the other responsibilities that we have. No, it's not good to instill, oh, I'm your mother and your father. Because again, now I'm big on healing, and that's hopefully what this platform is creating, a safe and sacred space for ourselves as well as our audience to feel healing. But that just in turn creates trauma that later on has to be healed from. So to tell your child, I'm your mother, and I hear it, even on Father's Day, if the father is for whatever reason, not present, oftentimes you will hear some mother say, well, you might as well buy me a gift because I'm your mama. No, 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 no.
This is really healing conversation, and I know sometimes when you're healing and you apply that salve, it don't always feel good. It sting a little bit, and this is one of those moments where it might sting a little bit, but gosh, that is truth and healing, man.
Well, come here. Let me be somebody's grandma. Come here, sugar. I'm a blow where it's stinging at. Yeah, come on. Let me blow. It's all right.
That's I love it. I love it. How can we honor and celebrate mothers in ways that truly nourish them emotionally, spiritually, and physically? I feel like we sort of touched on this when Mr. Al asked us, what
Hmm.
would, and one of the things that I'll say, our children truly can be healing for us, and I know my daughter, I'm a very talkative person, and I enjoy being around people, but truth, believe it or not, I'm actually not the most touchy feely person. I will hug now, but I wasn't always that I'm kind of I don't need to we don't need to hug and do all that. But God and my husband is a similar way. And God gave us a child who loves to hug. This child, she wants to hug, she wants to kiss, she wants to just, and she is always, I love you, mom, I love you, and just all of these words, and it has broken us. I mean, now, we're hugging and we're, and so I think that one of the things that we can really learn as mothers, as parents, is that we can learn from our children, and they can offer that place of emotional and spiritual. Even I think about one day, in this experience in life, you start to struggle in your faith and different things, and I was feeling very disconnected from God at a certain point. And I remember my daughter, she came up, she was 5 years old, and just something as simple as, Mom, can I say a prayer? And I said, sure. And she, in her 5 year old, intellect, said this beautiful prayer. And I was like, Amen. But I tell you, the very spot that she said that prayer the very next day, I stood in that spot and something came over me. And I literally just broke down into tears. I was just down on my knees, just like, and I felt this reconnection to God in a way I hadn't experienced before. And I feel like just through the innocent words and prayer of my 5-year-old, it, that moment, that space, that place, she created something that, I couldn't have created on my own at the time because I just wasn't there. And so I feel like, if it's coming from children, just knowing, going back to what we said before, nothing is too small. Even your prayers, and you might not feel like that prayer means a whole lot, but it can mean a whole lot.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just chime right on in behind Dia and say, honoring mothers, it goes beyond flowers and cards. And like Mr. Al said, actually honoring mothers is just asking, what do you need? Honoring mothers looks like listening without trying to fix something. Because, I'm not sure about Dia, but speaking for myself, sometimes I just need to talk and I just need to get it out. And it's not that I'm necessarily looking for you to, figure out a way to fix it. I just need to get it out. So just creating a space for us to just be in, to be present in. It also honoring mothers and celebrating mothers, it looks like giving us rest. It looks like that little small token of appreciation, not anything material, just your words. That matters more than most will know. And again, that presence. And then for mothers, it's also about honoring ourselves. It's celebrating how far we've come, acknowledging our growth, and just allowing ourselves to receive love too. Because just like Dia growing up, and I always tell my dad and my big mama now, hey, this was y'all's fault because they didn't hug us. And, to this day, Big Mama calls me Huggy Bear because she said, oh my gosh, you were one of the most huggingest children. And then, I got to this point where even to this day, I don't hug my mom. I don't hug my dad, my grandma, my sibling. We don't hug often. But when I became a mother, that was something that changed. I hug my daughter every day until now she got to this cool teenage age where she don't want me hugging her every day. But I will say sometimes I walk in the house and I will bust in her room and just say, listen, I need a hug. Because what I didn't know then that I know now is hugs are healing. Just putting that heart-centered space, connecting your heart chakras together, that's healing. So again, just celebrating ourselves because we deserve it, like fully.
And I just wanted to quickly say something when you said about honoring your mom by honoring yourself. And I hear a lot of moms or a lot of people talk about how before their mother passed on or their grandmother passed on, one of the things they just wanted to know is that their children could stand on their own 2 feet. And, making that choice in your life to just make good choices, that can also be honoring your mom, to what you just said, making good choices. Mm-hmm. And I know we're not perfect. None of us are. And we all steer down the wrong path at some point. But when you recognize, you know what I mean? Then standing up and then choosing to make a better choice, that can be honoring your mother.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, in one way that I see my adult self now honoring my mother is, again, like I mentioned earlier, we have healing conversations. And if it's something that I'm seeing that could potentially, like it's a generational pattern or a cycle, I have no problem saying, hold on, Mom, now let's talk about that for a second, because, that might not have been the best way to say it. Because as you say, you might cuss at a child. No, that's not right. That's creating generational trauma again that you get to heal from. So that's one way that I look at honoring my mother, because what you don't know, you can't fix. But on this healing journey, if I can call out something and I do it that's the other side of it now, doing it in a respectful manner. Because if you come with fire, bringing, fuel to this fire, that fire is only going to grow. So one way is honoring and being respectful in doing it. And I will say, my mother is very receptive, and again, not really knowing, growing into this space of learning how to be on the receiving end of things, even compliments. At first I didn't know how to receive it, but she'll be quick to tell somebody, oh, now my daughter Ren, she's helping me on my healing journey.
Mhm.
And it's like, wow, just being able to sit back and actually hear that, because it's like I'm able to be in a space where I can help her heal something that, her mother has transitioned, so she's not able to help my grandmother with that. But guess what? She has sisters, she has friends that she can go out and share this same, so it becomes like a domino effect. By me honoring my mother, now she's able to help to celebrate and honor other mothers.
Yeah. What I would say is mothers have all the goods. They look good. What they cook tastes good. What they say feels good. And sometimes we should just acknowledge and ask them, "Are you good?"
Hmm.
We should stop and ask. And if they're not, I want to say, because we've been speaking about legacy, the baby boomers, the Jim Crow kids, uh, no matter how old you mothers are, I know I changed my life, and I'm always grateful for being submissive and making the transition. It's never too late to change, and sometimes we hang on to recipes and remedies and all these things, and that's a good thing. But sometimes we hang on to things that we shouldn't pass on. And if we can learn something different, and if we can maneuver in a different direction, that, like Ren said, we can offer healing. Just because that was a way of then, times change, and we need to change with it. And we don't have to accept everything that has changed. Uh, I can't say everything that has changed been beneficial, but those things just carrying and continuing something on to show your kids and your grandkids that you can grow too, and you continuously to grow until we exit out of here. So I would just like for our mothers, well-deserved mothers, to keep that in mind, that we can always grow.
I'm gonna tell y'all what. Now, Mr. Al stated in the beginning of this episode that he is not a mother, but I'm gonna tell you what. I can darn sure appreciate his perspective on things, and I'm just so grateful that we get to come together and hear, his outlook on things. And that just makes me even more excited for next month when we go to honor the fathers.
Right.
Agree. I agree. And I feel like, I just want to say in my heart, to all the mothers out there, um, because there may be mothers who feel like they have not given all the things that they've heard us talk about mothers give and being good and all that. But have grace for yourself, number one. Have grace for yourself, because none of us are perfect. Um, I realized when I turned 30 years old, and I thought about my mom when she was 30. And my mom had a 10 and 11-year old when she was 30. And I thought to myself, back then, I thought my mom was the meanest mom. I didn't want her to talk to me, touch me, I just all the things. But when I turned 30 and I realized, wow, if I had a 10 and 11-year old right now, the way my mother did when she was 30, I don't know that I would be the greatest mother in this moment either. So I just encourage mothers to have grace for yourself. And if there is any opportunity for you to begin that reconciliation process with your child, do it. Even if it's small, do it. And if there are those who are out there who feel like they didn't have that experience with their mother, just know number one, you're not alone. And number two, have grace for yourself also. And if that arm is extended and you are in a safe place to accept it, do so. Because what we realize in this life is that it is short. And once individuals close their eyes, there is no more opportunity. And so we just want to make sure that we never leave that off the table if it's a safe place to open that up for reconciliation. That's all I wanted to add.
And I just got one little add on before Mr. Al comes in and lands this plane. I just want to ask the audience, ask our listeners, what did your mother or a mother figure plant within you that is still growing today?
All right, guys. We want to leave you with those thoughts. I want to thank my conscious co-host, Dia, the Diamond Star Dialect, and definitely, of course, Ren, the Jewel Dropper, and I am their co-host, Al Thomas, and your wellness coach. I hope we said something that can resonate to you, that will offer you some healing and bring you closer to your passion and your purpose.